All right, we are live, finally. So this week I actually want to, we're not going to have a guest this week. I'm going to talk about something that, kind of bugs me and that, I see a lot in the news, in the crypto news cycle that just doesn't seem to be accurate. And there seems to be a lot of confusion on. It's this whole idea on whether or not crypto is dead or alive at any point in time. It doesn't matter if this is 2017, 18, 19, 2020. It doesn't matter really what's going on. There's always this weird narrative that crypto is somehow dead or crypto is somehow going to go to the moon. And we don't really take any middle ground on that. So I kind of want to look at the common sense and the reality behind that. And I mean, shit, look, if Bitcoin's $3,000, half the camp is saying that, Bitcoin's dead. The other half is saying that it'll go back up. Bitcoin's worth 10,000. Half the camp is saying that it's going to keep going. The other half says it's going to collapse. Like it doesn't matter what the price is at. It doesn't matter what the market cap is at. Everyone has their own opinion. So let's talk about this and come to a consensus here. So Bitcoin has a $19 billion trade volume in 24 hours today. And it's generally around that amount. It's been as high as 30. It's been as low as 10. But, Bitcoin's sitting somewhere in between for daily trade volume. That's a lot of money. So Bitcoin's definitely not dead from that perspective. You also have to look at the fact that Bitcoin is the best performing asset of the past decade. And there's not a lot of other cryptos that can even come close to that. There's not a lot of other assets that come close to that outside of crypto. So just looking at Bitcoin alone, how is it dead? Over the past 10 years, Bitcoin has outperformed every other asset. And Bitcoin is one of the best performing assets of any decade, period. So I think that substantiates the fact that, at least Bitcoin, it's not dead. And I think you need to look at it long term to understand whether or not Bitcoin is still growing or if Bitcoin is slowing down. And we don't really have a sign of Bitcoin slowing down. So is Bitcoin dead or alive? Is crypto dead or alive? What do you think? Bitcoin is also the first time in history, really, that we've had the separation of state and money, which is good because if the state fails, don't you want something that's going to be stable? Don't you want to own something with value, with purchasing power that is going to survive and potentially thrive? Just look at what happened during quarantine, how Bitcoin has performed since we went into lockdown. Most other markets have done pretty bad. They've failed, are struggling. Bitcoin and a lot of other cryptos are actually doing very well. So just looking at Bitcoin, is crypto dead or alive? It doesn't fit the narrative of being dead. So, I don't even know why people talk about it. It's honestly something that really bothers me. But besides Bitcoin's just a cryptocurrency. Let's look at blockchain as a whole. Let's look at Ethereum. Ethereum still dominates the dApp market. When I talk about dApps, I'm talking about anything in an ERC20, ERC721 capacity. We're talking about domains, virtual worlds, trading cards, collectibles, art, sporting games, utilities, anything that could be put under the scope of a token on Ethereum. All of those are doing well. All of those have value. And some of the trading volumes are in the thousands of Ethereum per day. And Ethereum is dominating that dApp market still, despite how slowly it's growing and developing, and the fact that we're still not at Ethereum 2.0 yet. But the point is, these platforms are doing really well too, not just cryptocurrencies. You can build a cryptocurrency on Ethereum, but using Ethereum, you can do so much more. And that dApp market is really thriving. So looking beyond the scope of just, is crypto dead or alive? Is blockchain dead or alive? Blockchain is not dead. Blockchain is growing exponentially all the time, and it's getting better every single year. There's new developments every single year. Hell, there's new developments every single month. So if blockchain is growing exponentially, and then crypto must also be developing and growing in the right direction and can't be dead. Let's look at a competitor to Ethereum. Let's look at Cardano, for example. Cardano's market share has been going up since December of 2017. It's actually at the highest point it's been since December of 2017. The last time Cardano's market share took a spike, it went to $1.33. Now, a lot of you know that Cardano's been on the move lately. It's at number 6 in the world in terms of market cap, on coin market cap. I mean, if you take a Tether out of there, and then Cardano's technically at number 5. So let's give it number 5. When Cardano was at number 2, or if Cardano, was at number 2 in market cap, it'd be worth $1. And that's realistic too. In terms of the fact that Cardano doesn't have smart contracts being built on top of its blockchain yet. Shelley is just about to launch. It's very young. The technology is proving itself. And there's a lot of room for it to take away from what Ethereum is doing, which dominates that market cap, the dApp market, the smart contract market, whatever you want to call it. Cardano is going to take that market share away, some of it at least. So will some other competitors. But Cardano is looking like the biggest competitor right now. So if Cardano is able to take away that market cap, Cardano could easily jump Ethereum and be number 2 if it reached $1. If Cardano had a $100 billion market cap, it'd be worth $4. If it had $1 trillion market cap, which is where Charles Hoskinson wants it to get to eventually, it would have it'd be worth $40. So, I'm not trying to make price predictions here, but if these projects reach the kind of numbers that they want to reach, these are the numbers you'll realistically see. You also have to keep in mind that there are 5,726 coins listed on CoinMarketCap today. That's a relatively low number. It seems like a lot of coins. A lot of them are irrelevant and have no place. But, in 10 years, at the end of this decade, we'll probably see 1 million of them listed. Why? It's because as companies join and build on these blockchains, they're going to produce more tokens, more listings. The more Ethereum, Cardano, EOS, Tezos, whatever else is out there get validated, the more money gets poured into these platforms, the more tokens there'll be. So there'll probably be 1 million at least by the end of the decade. The top 20 of that 1 million will be mainstream multi-billion-dollar market cap coins. I'm talking hundreds of billions, not tens, hundreds of billions. So why am I spitting out that number? Well, it's important understanding the fact that it's understanding this narrative, is crypto dead or alive still? Because this is the main topic. Is crypto dead or alive? I'm giving you these numbers to give you an idea of how small and how early this market is, the direction it's going, and where it can get to. And because it has this potential, because it's trending in this direction, I can't say that it's dead. It's very much alive. And I'm going to try to explain that with numbers too. So what would the market cap of Bitcoin be worth? Or what would Bitcoin be worth? What would the market cap of Bitcoin be if it was on par with that of gold? Let's just say that we consider Bitcoin an asset, the digital version of gold, instead of money. What would Bitcoin be worth? What would its market cap be? Gold, the market cap of gold globally is roughly $8 trillion. Bitcoin could be worth $8 trillion one day. That's very realistic. If we really grow up believing, and our kids grow up believing, that Bitcoin is the equivalent of gold, it is the digital version of gold, Bitcoin could have a $8 trillion or close to that market cap, and its price could be ridiculous because of that. So I'm not going to go into calculating what the price would be, but it would be a 6-figure price minimum, and probably a lot higher. It could be worth $1 million or more for a single Bitcoin. It's very, very likely that that could happen. It's not probable that it's going to happen tomorrow, but it could happen in 10 years. So you got to keep that in mind. Look at the growing room. Look at where it can go. Just Bitcoin in the whole crypto space, in the whole blockchain space. Bitcoin has a lot of room to grow. And if it's going to be on par or equivalent to gold, or even surpass gold in terms of what gold is used for, you could expect an $8 trillion market cap for Bitcoin. So what about Ethereum? What about Cardano? They're not cryptocurrencies per se, they're platforms. ADA is a cryptocurrency on the Cardano platform. Ether is a native cryptocurrency on the Ethereum platform. You can create smart contracts on both, or at least with Cardano, you will be able to. So you could have an endless number of tokens come off of these blockchains, off of these platforms. You could have an endless number of smart contracts and dApps. And I mean, it's up to the mind what you can create with these things. And with all these companies that'll pile in, all the institutions, all the money at some point, and over time, you'll see all kinds of development. So what could the market cap for Ethereum be? What could the market cap for Cardano be? What kind of market cap would they share? You got to keep in mind that Ethereum, Cardano, they're not comparable to a company, because a company, it's not managing multiple different equities like an exchange is. That's what Ethereum and Cardano do. That's what they do. They manage all these different equities as if they were an exchange. You create onto these platforms what would be very similar to an equity. Tokens can be looked at as an equity in some ways. They might be listed as securities at some point too. It just makes sense. So let's look at that from that perspective. Like Apple has a $1.68 trillion market cap today. Microsoft has a $1.58 trillion market cap today. Amazon, $1.54 trillion market cap today. So if we're saying that, if Cardano and Ethereum are comparable to an exchange, then Apple, Microsoft, Amazon would be comparable to a token you'd put on Ethereum or Cardano. It's very likely you have an Amazon, Apple, or Microsoft build their own equity or token or their own dApp on Ethereum, on Cardano, maybe both. And that one of those tokens has a market cap of $1 trillion or more. That is a likely scenario. That is a more than likely scenario. So again, what would the market cap of Ethereum be worth, or Cardano in this case? The New York Stock Exchange has about $35 trillion market cap of equities underneath it. Now we can't compare Ethereum or Cardano to the New York Stock Exchange, because the New York Stock Exchange is limited to equities in America. We need to look at this globally, because Ethereum and Cardano are not restricted to just America. They're global. So if we look globally, there's about $85 trillion in equities under stock markets. That's a better estimate for what Ethereum and Cardano and others could manage, what they could be worth. That doesn't mean that Ethereum is going to be worth $85 trillion, but of roughly $85 trillion or a number around that range, Ethereum could have a market share, maybe 40 or $50 trillion. Who knows? You got to keep in mind that it's not just a cryptocurrency. It has aspects other than that where you're building dApps and smart contracts and solutions on top of its blockchain. And it's going to have competition, stiff competition. Yeah, Ethereum dominates the dApp market, but what happens when Cardano launches smart contracts with Goguin? What happens when they complete their development cycle and they can do everything Ethereum can do but better? Is Cardano going to control that market share? Are they going to just have a piece of it? Are they going to have a niche piece of it? It's very likely that they share that market pie, and it's not going to be just those two. There will be others as well. I don't know. I can't predict that for you. But, of a global market of roughly $85 trillion in equities, that's about a number you could expect as a market cap for these major platforms in the top 10 and top 20 that are blockchains, not just cryptocurrencies. So let's say that's Ethereum, that's Cardano, that's EOS, Tezos maybe Tron, IOTA, maybe Hashgraph, maybe. It all kind of depends. But they will all have a big chunk of what that market cap will eventually be for building dApps. We could just call it the dApp market because that seems like the general consensus of what the term is. So looking at that runway, is crypto, or if we want to broaden this and say blockchain, is blockchain dead or alive? Give me one reason why it's dead when it's growing. Give me one reason why it's dead when it has all this potential and runway. Give me one reason when it's made up of some of the best performing assets of any decade, especially the last decade, especially as we move into a digital age, especially as generationally millennials are accepting Bitcoin and teaching their children that Bitcoin is great. Their children will believe Bitcoin is great and maybe better than gold or than other equities or other investments, or that blockchain or dApps have more value, more future potential. Then they tell their kids that and their kids that. What happens to gold? What happens to oil? What happens to equities? What happens to traditional markets and options and futures and hedge funds? And what happens to global currencies, sovereign currencies? What happens to these things? You got to remember that value is driven subjectively more than it is just intrinsically. So again, is crypto dead or alive? I don't think crypto's dead. I think it's very much alive, and I think it should be plainly obvious. And it'd be really nice if the news in the crypto industry would stop debating these topics on a monthly basis. It makes no sense. Regardless of what the price is, a month from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, where's the technology going? Where's the market trending overall? I think that's the stuff that we're missing. And I think that's the stuff that distracts us. And we focus too much on the short-term trading, the short-term news, the short-term developments or non-developments. And we forget how far we've come with Bitcoin in the last decade, with Ethereum in just the last 6 years. Imagine another 10 years behind Bitcoin, another 10 years behind Ethereum or Cardano, or just the entire market, how big it will be. I think I've made my point for whether crypto is dead or alive. So I hope that also informs you. And if you have any questions, throw them in the comments, send me an email. I'd love to hear your opinion. I'd love to talk about this again at some point. But I'm going to end the live stream here. So guys, thanks for listening. I'll catch you next time.